Will Marvel Rivals run out of characters is definitely a point I've seen pop up quite a lot over the past few weeks. And this comes with a confirmation from NetEase that after Season 2 concludes, we'll be switching to 2-month seasons, which means we'll be getting a new character every month. And this was met with a very mixed response. Understandably, a lot of people were obviously quite excited. The prospect that you won't have to wait as long for some of your favourite characters to make their way to the game is obviously quite exciting. However, on the other side, there was also understandably a lot of skepticism, as this sounds like quite a tall order, and I can understand why some people might think they'd run out of characters very quickly. But a character a month is only 12 characters in a year, and that's barely even half the X-Men. So people started to realise pretty early on that they're unlikely to actually run out of characters to use. But then this point of view started to pivot towards whether or not they'd run out of ideas to make all of these characters feel unique and distinguishable. And this is definitely a much more interesting talking point. Marvel does have a lot of characters, but there is definitely some overlap between them. I mean, we've got a whole Spider-Verse roster that you can look at and wonder, how would you incorporate all of these into a game and make them all feel unique? And truth be told, you don't. In this regard, a lot of these characters will likely be converted into skins, and we've already seen this happen. Peter Parker is of course the main Spider-Man and the one that is currently playable, but Spider-Man 2099, Spider-Noir, I don't see these guys getting added as their own characters, especially given that Spider-Punk is already a skin for Peter. However, I don't think that means the entire Spider-Verse will be relegated to just being cosmetics. I definitely see Miles getting added as his own character at some point in the future, and I think it'd be a bit of a waste if he isn't. Miles does have similar powers to Peter Parker, but he does have his own unique set of abilities that could make him a really interesting character to play as. Personally, I'd probably make someone like Miles a support, allowing him to use his bioelectricity as a defibrillator of sorts. Maybe his electricity can also be utilised in his webbing, allowing him to slow down enemies or speed up teammates, applying some kind of paralysis or overcharge. His invisibility could be used, and although we have other characters like Sue Storm who have the capacity to turn invisible, you could make Miles feel a bit different in this regard by having it of course be a cooldown that maybe just lasts a couple of seconds, allowing you to swing away. We've also got characters like War Machine, who obviously has a very similar set of armor to Iron Man. However, I feel like it would be very easy to make these two stand apart. First of all, I would make Rhodey a tank. Really, if anything, I feel like you run the risk of maybe making his moves feel a bit too similar to Punisher, but this is also quite easily avoidable. I think if Rhodey was added, like I've already mentioned, make him a Vanguard. He'd probably be one of the few Vanguards that actually have the capacity to fly, which would definitely make him stand out a little bit. And if he is a Vanguard, he's going to be considerably bigger to Tony, so telling them apart would not even remotely be an issue. They could give him a mixture of being able to use repulsors, machine guns, and rockets, two of which obviously Tony can use, but I think in Rhodey's kit they'd be used in an entirely different way. Maybe for his ultimate he could fly in a straight line, unleashing some sort of carpet bomb underneath all of the enemies below him, which could cause knockback and enemy players to scatter around. And overall, I just think there's a lot that you can do with this character that would make him feel very unique. If we look at other games, for example, like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which has a huge roster, and a part of that roster there is Echo Fighters. You have Pit and Dark Pit, you have 3 different versions of Link, and despite the fact that these characters have very similar movesets, some people would rather play one over the other. Now, I don't exactly expect Rivals to have Echo Fighters per se. I think for a hero shooter that simply would not work as well as it does for something like Smash. Though I'm not entirely opposed to the idea of some characters having skins that convert them into other characters entirely, like giving Iron Fist a skin that actually converts him into Danny Rand. So that way you can kind of get away with adding some other characters to the game, but more so as advanced cosmetics that have their own voice lines and interactions with other characters. I could also potentially see this working for someone like Miguel as a skin for Peter, as opposed to it maybe just being a suit, in a similar vein to stuff in Injustice 2. But my point is more so that you can take characters with similar abilities and make them feel completely unique to one another, or at least have enough of a difference where someone would actively choose to play one of these characters over another. Marvel has a ton of sidekicks, yet they all use their sidekick powers in completely different ways. I'm not even remotely worried about Emma Frost, Jean Grey, and Professor X having the same moveset. There's been a lot of talk that if Rivals was to add the Juggernaut, he'd play way too similar to the Thing. And outside of the Thing, of course, charging and punching people, I don't know, I'd have to disagree. There'll definitely be some overlap in some characters. But given the fact that they were able to take someone like Venom, who is just a dark mirror to Spider-Man, and give him a completely different set of abilities, where the only overlap between them is that they can both swing around, I don't see new additions to the roster feeling repetitive anytime soon. As a huge Marvel fan, this is definitely something that I think is very exciting, and Rivals has definitely helped put the limelight on some of the less popular characters, or even just some characters that haven't been in the spotlight for quite some time. There's no denying that it has helped to massively boost the Fantastic Four's popularity, who despite being some of the most iconic characters in Marvel, they haven't really had this many people talking about them in a very long time. So as a Marvel fan, I think this is really cool. However, as someone that is a fan of Marvel Rivals and video games in general, I can understand why a lot of people would be concerned, and I can also see it potentially causing issues in future. The more characters you add, the harder the game becomes to balance, as you start to add more and more factors that you have to look at to making sure that the game stays fun for everyone and that there isn't just some broken meta. I do think as of right now this seems like a good thing, especially if you're currently really enjoying the game, and I think this will help players stay invested for longer. And of course the focus on Rivals is casual, not competitive. But if some characters do start to feel overly strong in comparison to others and it starts to ruin that fun factor for a lot of people, then it's going to cause issues and some people will start to lose interest. But at the same time, Marvel does have that many different heroes and villains in its roster that I don't think this is something that's going to be a problem for a very long time. There's characters like Kamala Khan, who of course has similar abilities to Reed Richards but uses them in entirely different ways. We have Sam Wilson, who has taken up the mantle of Captain America several times, and I think if he's added as Captain America instead of Falcon, you're not really going to run the issue of him and Steve playing in a similar fashion. Carnage is another symbiote, just like Venom. However, I don't think these two would play in the same way in any regard. I mean, I'd fully expect Carnage to have some level of ranged capability alongside being able to make axes and blades out of his tendrils. I mean, some of the symbiotes like Riot I would fully expect to just be a skin for Venom. The She-Hulk, but I don't see Jen and Bruce having the same playstyle either. And even then, there are so many unique heroes and villains with unique abilities, as I've already mentioned. There's people like Black Bolt, Trapster, Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, Cyclops, Sentry, Marrow. There are so many characters that they can pull from that I can definitely see them giving very unique playstyles. That although I do think there will be some overlap between characters eventually, I also don't see it being a major issue for a very long time. But anyways, I'm going to wrap this video up here. I'm curious to hear what you all have to say down in the comments. Is there any particular characters that you are hoping get added to Rivals at some point? And if so, what kind of role would you like to see them fit into? Do you think overlap between abilities is going to be an issue if we do see heroes like Miles Morales get added alongside Peter Parker? Or can you think of other ways that they might make them more interesting and unique alongside them? Anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.